Hello everyone, Byron Tater here, and for my vlog this week I thought I would do somewhere that some of you may have never heard of before. It's not a really popular known place outside of the little local area it's in. My topic for today in the Revolutionary War time period is going to be on Old Fort Herod in Kentucky. Fort Herod was the first permanent settlement in Kentucky. It was here before Boone. Matter of fact, Daniel Boone actually had a cabin in Herodstown in the fort that he had planned to build before he went and did the Transylvania Company with the illegally with the British and Henderson. So it's a really cool place. At the fort, it has all the history of the fort and the frontier times, but it also tells a great story of how the Revolutionary War was fought on the Western Front. Has a lot of what we'd consider pioneers and frontiersmen, not very well trained militias going up, and they're not fighting regular British soldiers. They're fighting Native Americans, mainly Shawnee, Cherokee, that had sided with the British. They're fighting some Tories in the area, wanting to try to push them back, and they're also fighting a few British regulars with some, I guess we'd call it backup with artillery. Not a lot of artillery in the area, but one we'll talk about later that was very important to the time period. James Herod realized very quickly that his fort was the biggest fort in Kentucky. When Boonesboro went under attack in the same time frame, those people came from Boonesboro to Fort Herod to stay for protection. Same thing with Logan Station. Same with any of the smaller stations in the area. They came and fled to Fort Herod for protection. Fort Herod had roughly 10 to 20 cabins. Not all of them were inside the stockades. And in the year 1777, at the fort, it was held under siege for almost 3 months. They couldn't get in, couldn't get out. The only thing that saved the fort was a tiny spring that was inside the walls of the fort. So it's a really interesting facts there. We also know that one of the major players in the Revolutionary War time period is George Rogers Clark. He was stationed at Fort Herod at the time. He planned his whole Vincennes campaign that happened later on, where they take out Vincennes, Indiana, and basically doesn't give the British any chance of coming in and sweeping down from the west. He steals gunpowder. It ruins a lot of stuff there. So that was all planned at Fort Herod. The history there is amazing. You can also argue that had, let's say, Fort Herod fallen, pretty much all of the frontier Kentucky would have had to go back east. And with that happening, the British could have pushed in from both sides with natives' help. I also want to look at the native help during this time period. You had Cherokee, Shawnee, the Delaware, remnants of the Delaware Nation, the Iroquois, all fighting along with the British. They were giving them goods, clothing, weapons to support them, and promising to help fight get their land back that they'd lost from the encroaching American colonists. And the Americans really didn't have much of a fight to try to get the native side because they had taken land illegally. I mean, the Proclamation of 1763 forbade any settlers crossing the Appalachian Mountains, and they flooded in by the thousands over, and not a thing they could do. The British, in all reality, couldn't have got them out either, but yet they still were talking to the natives, telling them they want to try to get your land back and get them free. From Fort Herod's standpoint, it was able to withstand the native attack. It was also able to withstand severe drought in the time period. The reason that Fort Herod also stands a major player is we have to look at other forts around the area that are no longer there or no longer even historically viable to go see. The big one being Riddell Station. Riddell Station, in comparison to Fort Herod, is very small. It had maybe 2 cabins and a blockhouse. But at Riddell Station, Colonel Byrd of the British come down, and Colonel Byrd brings something that is a game changer. He brings artillery with him. He brings cannon. And along with Shawnee warriors, they give the ultimatum to Riddell Station that if you don't leave and surrender your land, we're going to open fire. And at first, the Riddell Station frontiersmen would not leave. So the British do open fire on them. And they blow open the gates. And in a promise that the Shawnee leaders had given them that they would not go in, the natives would not go in and destroy things, was broken. The leaders couldn't hold the warriors back. They go in. The stories and the accounts say they threw a young infant into a fire, killing him, bashed out the brains of women, killed men, destroyed the entire area. And the plan was to come through from Rodell's on down into Harrodsburg and wipe out Fort Harrod next. But Colonel Byrd was so mad and irritated that he'd been lied to, the guys couldn't keep their word, that he pulled back. He didn't bring his cannon on down. So with that being lost, the Shawnees did come on down to Fort Harrod, but they didn't have the artillery and firepower to blast open the doors. They could only hold siege for so long there. With that, we go quickly to the end of the wartime, and the unofficial last battle of the war happened in Kentucky. It happened at Blue Licks, which is not that far from Fort Harrod. People from Fort Harrod went to help fight at Blue Licks. It was an ambush set up. Daniel Boone gets captured, where it's where he's sent off to live with the Shawnee for so many years. It's really the last official battle of the Revolutionary War, even though Yorktown had already happened. The peace treaty hadn't been signed yet. And that a lot of the planning there and the defensive mechanisms, once they heard it, came from Fort Harrod. Now, from a today's standpoint, you can still go and visit Fort Harrod. It is a state park here in Kentucky. During my bachelor's work, I worked at Fort Harrod as an interpreter, as the native scout there. They do a great job of telling both sides, both the American side and the British side. They don't hide facts. They don't water stuff down. It is a pure historical site, so you're going to learn both sides. On one side, you're going to get the pure settler side, the American side of how the natives had signed land over, and then from the other side standpoint, you're going to get a native interpreter telling you the exact facts of how they see things. It's a really cool place. Each year they do a grand council where the settlers and the natives come together and they talk, trying to air out their issues. Then in June they do the grand reenactment of the battles of 1777, where we will reenact Rodell Station there because Rodell Station no longer stands on Saturday. Then on Sunday we do the reenactment battle of actual what happened at Fort Harrod, the siege. We have people portraying George Rogers Clark, all the big heroes of this time frame there. It's a really cool place. If you guys want to know more about it, I'm going to put some links on here underneath. I'll even put up a reenacting video of myself in there. You probably won't recognize me because I can change quite a bit once I've donned the actual native gear. My white side goes away and my native side comes out pretty well. I also put up the link to the website to Fort Harrod so you can see it. If you guys have any questions, please comment down below and put some stuff there to like know. I would love to tell you guys more about it. It's one of my favorite places in Kentucky, and it is an awesome place to visit. It's full of history, Revolutionary War history. It has documents and articles still there. So if you're ever in the area of Kentucky, please come on out and see Fort Harrod. Really cool historical place. Thanks for your time, guys. We'll talk to you later.